You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158.
We apologize for the feedback heard in this episode due to some technical issues. While we're actively working to resolve this for future episodes, we encourage you not to let it take away from Sarah Butler's powerful story and the important message she shares. Her journey of love, resilience, and strength is truly one you won't want to miss. Thank you for your understanding and support. Welcome back to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we share the stories of first responders and their families, stories of courage, dedication, and the sacrifices that often come with a life of service. Today, we're joined by Sarah Butler, a remarkable woman whose story is both heartbreaking and inspiring. Sarah was married to Bill Butler Jr., a devoted sheriff's deputy who tragically lost his life in the line of duty in June 2024. Together, they built a life filled with love and raised 3 wonderful children. In addition to being a dedicated wife and mother, Sarah holds a PhD in psychology and works at the local hospital, where she provides care and compassion to others. Her journey through loss, resilience, and finding strength for her family is a testament to the endurance of the human spirit. During this conversation, Sarah shares memories of Billy, what he was like both on and off duty, their love story, and the challenges and joys of being a sheriff deputy's spouse. She also opens up about the day of the tragedy, coping with its aftermath, and how she and her children have worked to honor Billy's legacy. This episode is a powerful reflection on love, sacrifice, and moving forward after unimaginable loss. Let's honor Billy's memory and hear Sarah's incredible story. Here's your host, Rico.
Could you share a bit about your husband and what he was like, both as an off-duty deputy and a husband?
Yeah, absolutely. Bill was very calm in the household. We had been married, it would have been 13 years. And so he always brought this calming presence about him. Very spontaneous and liked to laugh and liked to do things, but he was just always very chill. We always made fun of him because he had hearing aids and he couldn't hear anything. And whenever he didn't want to hear the kids, he would just turn them down. So we always laughed about that, but he was always so calm. And when he was on duty, I work at the sheriff's department as well. So it was always, are you even working? What are you even doing? But he always had the biggest smile on his face for any time that he was on duty. He just loved it. He would stop into the house often, because we live pretty close to town. He would stop in and, grab a bite to eat or get something to drink. And so it was always nice to see him on the security cameras, oh, Bill's home. He's coming to get something. And so he was, very calm. And when he's on duty, just all in all the time.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
It must be nice to be able to tune out everything with the hearing aid stuff.
Yeah, we made fun of him for that, but yes.
That's pretty awesome. So how did you happen to meet Bill, and what drew you to him?
So that's an interesting story for anybody that was, fortunate enough to watch the funeral or the service. The JJ spoke about me meeting him, and I actually did meet him at the jail. He was doing corrections in the back of the jail, and I was the jail nurse setting up meds for the inmates. And I rolled in there in my motorcycle and walked in and started doing medications. And, he's like, who is this? And, he just came back to the med room where I was and just started talking. And, I've always liked that population. So it's very easy to talk to the deputies. And that was, that was when I actually met him, was at the jail. So when people ask, oh, how did you meet your husband? In jail. So if that's not the true romance story, I don't know what is. But, he was just, laughing and joking, but would be very serious when he needed to be. And all of the inmates had tons of respect for him just because he was always so fair and honest.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely seemed like a pretty calm, fair, honest person to be around. I can remember some of the experiences, with the family gatherings and such, just being around him. I know him and I didn't really have a lot of conversation, but always felt calm being around him, like safe,
Yeah.
It's always that good,
Yeah.
chill feeling.
Just so easy to talk to, always. He always connected with people, just very easy. He'd make a heck of a great salesman, I said.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And life as a police spouse or a deputy spouse, what was it like being married to a sheriff's deputy? And how do you handle the unique challenges that came with that?
I can't say that being a police spouse was really any different. Bill was only at the sheriff's department as a road deputy for about a year and a half after he graduated from the academy. So he wasn't on the road for a super long time. So I didn't really get acclimated to the police spouse role. We married as adults. So he had his career, I had my career. My career didn't change when his did. So the police spouse, I can't really attest to that, other than he was there. He loved to go to the sheriff's department all the time, even on his days off, because that's what he loved. And so, he was like, I'm going to do this. And I can tell you that our collection of firearms increased dramatically when he started at the sheriff's department again. So there was, oh, new guns. Yay, I need this for duty. I need this. So we just had to get a bigger gun safe is what we had to do. So that was the police spouse that I knew. So
Right. So you two were together for what, almost 13 years?
yep.
And at that time he was in the National Guard, correct?
Correct. Yes. So we would have been married for 13 years. We got together in 2009 when he was still at the sheriff's department, but he was military at that time. He was a recruiter for the National Guard, but he was full-time Army just as a recruiter. And we had some great times with that. He recruited out of the University of Michigan. So we got to go to U of M football games and go to the big house and, meet the quarterbacks and meet the players and, all of the bougie tailgating things. And we had all the perks for things like that. So that's, when we first met, that's what he was doing. He hated it, but that was his obligation. But he loved law enforcement, always wanted to be the police officer. So
Yeah, it sounded like it. He definitely loved his job.
sure did.
He's proud of it, and we were all proud of him for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely looked up to him. So, on the day of the incident, if you are comfortable, could you share what you remember about the day that you received the news?
Yeah. I sure can. And it's an odd story. He was working that day and I had to work that day. And the babysitter, because it was summer break, the babysitter that we had actually was sick. So I had to scramble. I said, can you call in today? Can you watch the kids? He's like, no, I can't call in. I said, well, I can't either. So, I was able to get a friend of mine to watch the kids. And it was a Thursday, and I go to the sheriff's department and see inmates on Thursdays. So I was at the jail, and I had got done seeing inmates, and I came home. And as soon as I walked in the door, I told my friend, I said, thank you so much. And she left, and it was about 2 minutes. It was about 2 minutes. I kept getting a phone call, but it wouldn't connect.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to, scroll on Facebook just in that brief second, and I had saw shots fired, officer down. And the phone rang again, and I answered it, and it was actually our charge nurse at the time. And she said, are you at home? And I said, yes. Is it Bill? and she says, you need to get back to the hospital. So I called my friend that was here watching the kids, and I was, running out. It takes me like 67 seconds to get to the hospital. I live very, very close to it. And I said, Kim, can you come back to watch the kids? I got to go to the hospital. Yes, yes, yes. So I left, and then, the kids were fine by themselves for the minute. And then Kim got here, and I got to the hospital, and, I had no idea really what to expect. Like, just because I'm sarcastic and that's just my relationship with Bill, it was, I was going to go in there and give him a bunch of shit thinking he got like shot in the leg or got shot in the arm or, something that was, or the foot, like who knows, right? But I really did not expect that. So a lot of people don't know, but I was actually, because I'm medical, I was actually in the trauma room when Bill was getting coded. So I watched that. That was very important for my side of things to see that they were doing all they absolutely could, but there was just nothing. So by the time frame is a little bit difficult for me. I believe from the time that I got the phone call and I got back to the hospital, he had been in there for maybe 25-ish minutes without a pulse, without breathing, without anything spontaneous, which anybody medical knows is not a good sign. And, I was at the foot of his bed, and people are, there was a surgeon trying to put in a central line. There was the respiratory guy that was, ventilations and doing CPR and doing all of the things. And I stood at the foot of the bed with the emergency room doc, and he said, excuse me, his brain has been without oxygen for a long time. And I said, I know. And then it was just a second or two later. And, anybody that knew Bill or anybody that saw pictures know that he was very, very tan, very tan. Mm-hmm. And he, laying on that table, he didn't have a shirt on, and laying on that table, he was so pale, like so pale. And I said, anybody to see Bill Butler pale is not a good thing. So I said to the ER doctor, I said, I'm going to have to plan a funeral. And he said, yeah. And it was just a second or two after that, and he called the code. And, because of how he was killed, everything was under investigation. So we couldn't, I couldn't go and touch him and take his rings off and take his watches off. I couldn't do any of that, but they were so incredibly sweet. That emergency room was absolutely packed of city police and sheriff department and state police and, all of the ancillary people, the firefighters, and it was just packed. And my memory is not super great of times of that time, but I know that they let me go in and out of Bill's room as much as I wanted to, just so I could see him and touch him, and, which was good, which was important. So that is my recollection of the event of that day. From there on, after I talked to the medical examiner and after city PD and state police and all of the investigations, everything was a blur. So, yeah.
It was definitely a sad day. I know when I heard when my stepmom had called me, she had asked me if I had heard anything about Billy, and I said, no, is he okay? My first thought was, well, she said he'd been shot, and I thought that maybe he just got injured and it would be fine. And when she started crying, then I knew something was not right. I knew something was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when I immediately called work, and it's like, I'm not coming in tomorrow. I got to go and
Yeah.
go see my cousin. So definitely a hard day for all of us. And I can imagine it was hard for you, especially seeing what you saw and having to experience that.
Yeah. One of the it took several hours for them to come down and get the things like his vest and his work phone and all of those things. It took him a while, his radio, everything like that. But by the time the funeral home was ready to reel him out, I was still there. They walked him out the back of the trauma room, like to the hallway, so that it wasn't like through ER with all these people. And I had no idea that this would happen, but the entire hallway was absolutely completely packed with people from the sheriff's department. And as soon as they wheeled out, they saluted and they stood there until, and then we walked out of the emergency room. The whole parking lot was full, and I had no idea that people would be there, and they all just stood and saluted. And, as they put Bill into the hearse, it was just so surreal. And I couldn't thank everybody enough for coming and supporting. But, I really had no idea that somebody would be watching over his body from the minute that he left the hospital until he was in the ground. Like, I had no idea that his body would not be left alone. And so that is something that, I learned such interesting things about law enforcement. But, there was somebody there guarding him and protecting him so he wasn't alone, throughout the autopsy and things like that. So it's an honor.
So they were pretty much guarding him all the way till he was put into the ground, basically.
Full police escort from anywhere, because he went from Hillsdale Hospital, he went to Lansing for gift of life donation and autopsy and investigation or whatever. And it was a full police escort all the way up to Lansing. And it was, when he came back to Hillsdale County, it was the escort, the full thing. He had to wait at one funeral home overnight because there was a funeral going on at the current funeral home. So the next day when he was coming to the funeral home that we used, full police escort the entire time, color guard and everything. It was just crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't know if people have seen videos or if you have, but there was people lined up on the streets like a parade when they knew that he was going to be coming by. So when we went from the funeral home in Litchfield to the funeral home in Hillsdale, I got to be a part of that. I was actually in the first police car for part of that, and to see the people absolutely the entire way lining the streets and waving their flags and saluting and holding their heart and crying, and it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might have seen something like that on the news. I think I might have seen you in a deputy's car or something.
Yeah.
Your youngest son might have been sitting on your lap or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like a still picture or something like that.
Yeah, that's what that was.
So, coping with the immediate aftermath, in the initial days after his death, what emotions were you dealing with, and where did you find the strength and the support?
I, from the day that it happened, from June 27th, his oldest daughter was up north camping, and my best friend lives in Gaylord, and I got home after they had taken Bill from the hospital. Like, I got home like around 7 at night, and within a half hour, Bill's daughter Kylie made it down from up north, and my best friend made it from Gaylord, and people were just at the house nonstop. And I mean, they stayed with us for 2 weeks. For the first several days, there was just so much because of the magnitude of the service and all of the law enforcement that had to be coordinated and all of that. When we were at the funeral home making the arrangements, the law enforcement team, it's called the SMART team, came in, and these people just go around for people that are killed in the line of duty and explain, like, as a survivor, you get this and this, and we've already applied for this for you, and this will already be taken care of. Like his vault for his casket, that was already donated and already being taken care of. And they coordinated all of that. All of the huge things was already taken care of. And so my job was, although it was overwhelming, like super overwhelming, I just had to go to the places, like for the visitations, where there was a changing of the guard every 15 minutes over bill. I can only imagine what those people heard me say, but I just had to go and do those things. Otherwise, we had a bonfire every evening, and we just sit around and talk bill memories, and people would stop in all day every day and bring flowers or bring food or stuff for the kids to play with. Honestly, in that first 2 weeks, I have no idea if my kids brush their teeth. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Somebody was taking care of them. I promise you that. They were fed and they were showered, and people were taking care of them, but it wasn't me. I was here, but my mind was not. I would just sit there, and there was a liaison from the sheriff's department that was here with us, and he said, I will get you anything you need. And so I would just have to say an idea, and somebody was out taking care of it. It was incredible. But one of the things that was, and I don't know if this will be asked later on, I don't know, but one of the most difficult things as a spouse is, it's Hillsville County. Nobody's going to die, right? There's not going to be a law enforcement that's killed. So I had no idea if Bill wanted cremated or buried. I had no idea where his loans were at. I had no idea what debt he has. I had no idea anything of the military. I had no idea. We had no will. We never talked about it because nothing's going to happen. Right? So trying to figure out all of that, all of the accounts and all of the things and all of the Social Security and all of those, insane. My friend that stayed for 2 weeks, she's super great at taking notes. And anytime there was a phone conversation that was important, or an email or a text or whatever, she was writing it down and taking notes. We need to do this, we need to do this. And it was so incredibly helpful. She set up the bank account for the donations. She set up one of those and just helped with the meal train and all of the incredible things that I would never, ever have thought about. But that was one of the biggest things is first of all, we're incredibly unorganized, apparently. Bill's had some VA stuff over here and some law enforcement stuff over here, and he might have a life insurance policy. I don't know. We might have this. I don't know because we never talked about it. We never discussed. So that was one of the huge challenges in those first several weeks, because that stuff is time sensitive.
Right.
But we got it done. We're, there's still some loose ends that we're trying to tie up, and it's, it's almost been 6 months now. It's crazy to believe.
Yeah.
So yeah.
To even think about it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. And yeah, I mean, I can understand that, yeah, he was the first officer to be killed in line of duty in almost 100 years. So you would never think that Hillsdale would be the place. I remember going there as a kid and just thinking of how safe it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was so safe, and it's just unreal.
Yeah, and a lot of people from the county, especially the sheriff's side of things, this has never happened. So I know that a ton of policies and procedures changed because they ran into unexpected things like, oh, we never thought about that because this would never happen. And so, there are a lot of things that have changed in the county as well because of it. So, but the support from the law enforcement side, even in the military side, has been absolutely incredible. So helpful.
I'm glad you had that support, family support, and the support with the community and stuff like that. That's
Yes, absolutely.
important. I can imagine it was an attribute to you. It'd help you quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, as far as the impact on your family, how has the loss affected you and your family, especially your children? Um, how do you manage to guide them through this terrible time?
That's a good question. So our children are younger. They're 11, 9, and 7. And they are so much stronger than I am. Even that day, I called my friend that was here with them because I didn't want them to hear it on social media or whatever. I didn't want somebody to stop in and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your dad," because that would just be mortifying. So when my friend brought them to the hospital and I told them what happened, two of them, the youngest one was just like, "I'm hungry. Where's the snacks?" And the oldest one, my daughter, was very stoic. Like, she didn't cry. She just said, "Did they find the guy? Because if they didn't, I'm going to." And I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're 11. No, you're not. Sit down." But, the middle one, broke down. And I did not know how to navigate that. And I still don't know if I'm doing it right. But, they see me cry.
Mhm.
And there has not been a period where I have been upset or mad. I don't hold anger for what happened. But there are times of sadness. We had a family vacation planned to the Caribbean. It was about a month after he passed. And I really struggled to know if I should have taken them. It was a trip that was paid for months and months ago. And, we were looking so forward to that. Do I still take them by myself, to this family's destination vacation where you're going to see all of the happy families and all the happy fathers? And is that something that we're going to do? Yeah, it is. We did. The hardest thing is there's no instruction manual.
Yeah.
I don't know. So navigating it, family, our family members built incredibly close to everybody, so the family members are still struggling. My sisters and my mom and, my aunts, and we talk about Bill all the time. So I feel like, the grief process is terrible, but I went back to work after a few weeks. I can't just sit here in this house and stew about what happened. Like, I got to get back out there. I got to get my mind off of these things. And, the kids are doing great in school and they're in the honor roll and lots of friends. And I'm trained in mental health, so I'm fully equipped to see if people are struggling, and they're not. They eat and they sleep and they play, and the navigating the children has been very easy, and because of them, it makes me stronger.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, having something so traumatic and to be able to just, I don't know, handle it so well. I mean, I remember seeing you at the visitation, and I mean, you yourself seemed pretty strong. I could tell you were hurting, but you were strong. You held it together pretty good. And I
Yeah.
could tell your children were holding it together pretty good. And that was encouraging.
Yeah.
Even though I cried like a baby.
Yeah. Sometimes, but it's one of them, when I do cry, my middle guy, he'll come and give me a hug, and he knows, and he's just as there for me. So
Yeah.
compassionate, lovely children. So
That's awesome. I'm glad that they're doing well and everything's going good with them. Um, I can't imagine how hard it is. I mean, obviously, you say it seemed like it was pretty easy, but it's still kind of hard in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, Community support. I noticed there was a lot of community support, uh, which was just astounding. It blew my mind. How did the sheriff's department or local community support you in the days and weeks that followed?
I wish that I had an opportunity to thank everybody individually, but the amount of support, like not just financial, not just like gifts and food, it's people are so sincere and so supportive. Little things like after everything had happened, my children's school sent flowers and they sent like baskets of activities for the kids. And, people dropped off a huge cooler full of drinks for people that would be stopping in. There were several funds that were started for like savings accounts and things like that for the kids. And that's, and it's not just the community, it was people from all over the nation. Like we received stuff from Texas and Nevada and California, and people would send like homemade quilts and flags and wooden engravings, and the amount of things that we have and received was, we had an Excel spreadsheet with all of the donations and thank yous, and it was pages and pages and pages and pages of things that sent cards and sent flowers, and the community support was so incredibly overwhelming. And it wasn't just for us, it was also for the sheriff's department. So when I would go in there, when I finally go back to work, or if I had to go pick something up, people were giving all that they could. One gentleman, they said, came in and donated a dozen eggs because that's all that he had. I received an envelope that had a quarter and a dime in it because that's all that somebody had. And it's just, Bill and I were always the givers. We are quite okay. And so we would give and help. And so to receive that help, I said, people need this so much more than I do. I didn't know what to do. I said, we don't need this. We don't need this. But the people that were close to me said, this is how people heal, by helping his family. So just let people love you. And I said,
Right.
Okay. And it's an amazing community. It sure is. And his police car was parked up at the sheriff's office,
Mhm.
and the people that came out there, and I tried to stay like out of the light. I don't want that. I did not want all that attention, and I didn't want pictures of me or the kids. I didn't want any of that. So I would go out to his car at the sheriff's department, like later at night when nobody was there, and look around and just see what people had left. And there's some pretty cool things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was there. I went to the vigil, and I was with Christy and Josh, and
yeah,
it was heartwarming to see the turnout,
yeah,
people that were there.
and all of the things around his car.
Yeah, everything that was placed around his car and everything like that.
Yeah, the
And that's how I
signs.
got this thing from. I got this from Casey.
Yep.
Took it off himself and gave it to Christy to give to me. So it means a lot. It's very special. It's special. And
Yeah.
I keep looking every day. I wear it every day.
Yeah, I like it.
That's how he keeps me safe. Because I'm out there all day, every day, driving around.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like on the day of the funeral, uh, remember the experience of seeing all of the people um, as we drove past going to the site where he was going to be buried, and just seeing the sea of people that lined the streets. And that was just amazing. I mean, I couldn't hold back the tears. I mean, it was just amazing.
Yeah. And the flags waving.
Yep.
There was a sign that was a little closer to the cemetery and it said praying for you, Tegan, Trigg, and Tatum, and those are our kids' names. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was heart wrenching, but just so thoughtful.
Right.
A lot of that stuff people think goes unnoticed, but no, we saw.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every bit of it.
Yep.
It was definitely appreciated.
Yeah.
So in honoring his memory, do you have a specific way you honor his memory, other than just going about your daily life? Is there anything that you do special or anything like that?
We're still waiting for his headstone, which shouldn't be done until next year, sometime I think around Memorial Day. But it is big and fancy and everything Bill Butler style. And so once that gets in place, I think that going to the cemetery will have more meaning. Like I go out there and I see him quite often, and I, straighten up the flowers or straighten up the trees or whatever is there. And, a lot of times it's just me, and, I'll just go and talk to him, and, but to honor his memory, there's still so many events. He's on the memorial wall in Oakland County for the police thing. So that was on 9/11. We went up there for that, and I spoke at that. And he's going on the national wall in Washington, D.C. For Police Week in May of 25. And I really struggled to know if I should take the kids for that, but we're going. I'm going to take them out of school for a week, and we're going to go to Washington, D.C. and, see Bill's name on the wall. And, there was a Hillsville College football game, and that they did a little tribute to Bill. And there's so many events that are still in his, golf outings and things like that are still in his honor, for people to remember him. So I, like I said, it's been almost 6 months, and think about him every day. Like at the sheriff's department, when I go, they have a Bill Butler wall of, there's a flag and there's a plaque and there's the, the thin blue line. And so you can't go anywhere and not see it.
Right.
Yeah.
I was only able to see one of the billboards that they've made in that was in
Yeah.
what town was that? Out by Pittsburgh.
Hudson,
Yes. So,
yep. Yeah. There's one in Hillsdale now too. So Bill's got 2 billboards, and it just makes me laugh. But yes, because you knew Bill, and he would have hated all of this attention because he was just so humble, but he absolutely deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He would not have wanted all of this fuss and to do about him, but he gets it.
Right.
So
how we honor his memory and his legacy.
That's right. That's right.
And too, like you're right, it does help us people. We see that, and it helps us and reminds us that there are people out there that love us and care about us, and people that are willing to risk their lives and put their lives at risk to protect us.
For sure.
Honorable men and women.
For sure.
Unfortunately, they're far and few between, but they're there.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are.
Uh, how do you feel about your husband's commitment um, to his duty? What do you want others to understand about the sacrifice as a sheriff's officer and their families?
Kind of like I said earlier, it was his love and it was his passion. And I gave him a lot of grief about retiring from the military early to do law enforcement. Not just because of the pay; it was a huge pay, but also the super great insurance. But that's what he wanted to do, and that's what made him happy. And I said, okay. He supported me while I was getting my degree, and it's for other people and the sacrifices. It's just part of it. Anything can happen on any day,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Literally anything. And you just try not to hold resentment or feelings like that. There is a sacrifice. And I people don't believe me, but there were three other deputies on scene, and I am incredibly thankful that it happened to Bill
Yeah.
and not one of those other three deputies, because people don't understand how absolutely dedicated he was to everybody. And if something would have happened to one of those other three deputies, Bill would not, he would not have been well mentally.
Right.
And so I am incredibly thankful that it was him. I have a beautiful home and I have beautiful children because of him. And there was, two other deputies that were quite young, and they haven't even got to start their lives yet. They were younger than Bill's children. They were younger than his oldest children. And if something would have happened to them, he would never ever have been able to forgive himself. So, I understand the situation. And like I said, I have not ever held any anger or resentment. I'm only very thankful that there were other deputies that were there with him when he passed. He died on the scene. He didn't die en route to the hospital. He didn't die at the hospital. It was instant. And so I'm so thankful that it wasn't like some traffic stop out in a rural area where somebody just shot him and drove away and left him there. Like, that's not what it was like. So I'm so thankful for the little things like that. And I'm thankful that I got to be in there with him when things were going on. That's, a lot of people don't understand that part, but it was very, very comforting. Sacrifices are different in other ways, but I'm so thankful for that part.
Wow. I I didn't even, thinking back, I didn't even think of it that way. I mean, you kind of brought light to that. I I had anger and, obviously sorrow, but and then you also think in the back of mind it should have been somebody else, and uh, I would have never thought of it that way. That's incredibly brave to think that, and I didn't I wouldn't thought that it would have affected Billy that much, but like you said, he was so dedicated that it would have messed him up mentally,
There was
especially for young officers.
there was a 24-year-old male officer, no, 24-year-old female and a 22-year-old male.
Oh my God, they're just kids.
That's what he called them. They were like his kids. Just kids, man. Just kids. And there's an incredible foundation called Tunnels to Towers that
Hmm.
came in and paid off my mortgage. And, to never have to worry about that, it just blows my mind. And
Wow.
and I'm so thankful that because of how it happened. All of my children will have a free ride to college when they get to that point. And the support and all of the things, like, we're set, like, so incredibly overwhelming. But if it would have been one of those two younger deputies that didn't have the military background and didn't have all of the things, I'm just thankful. I'm thankful that it was one shot. It was one shot. It was one bullet, one shot. And it was in an area of his body where he got shot that he was still pretty enough to have an open casket.
Right.
Yeah,
definitely a very handsome man.
there's yes. So it's, I'm thankful for the things that people don't really understand. So
Incredibly brave of you to think of it that way, because I mean, it's just a lot of people in their mindset, they kind of get angry and resentment, and then it just kind of eats you up inside, and it's a hard way to live.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely is.
Um, uh, and moving forward, how have you found purpose and strength in the years following his passing? What has been your anchor?
It hasn't been a year yet. We're still in the months, but my
Right.
kids, the community support, the tributes that people are still having, the events that people are still having, like, that's where, he's gone, but he'll never be forgotten. So there have been very rare times when I've driven by this cemetery, it's on my way to my sister's house, that somebody hasn't been there. So I find strength in that.
Right. It's amazing. Do you have any message to other widows? What words of comfort or advice would you offer to other spouses who have uh, or are facing heartbreak of losing their loved one in law enforcement?
I'm not typically an anxious person, like, I'm pretty laid back, but I was so very anxious that I would make a mistake or do something wrong in the grieving process. You know, how would people perceive if I took the kids to the Caribbean? Like, would people get mad at me and think that their donated money would go to that? Or, would people think that I went back to work too soon, or I took too much time off? Or the thing that I would tell other survivors is there's no manual, there is no instruction manual, there is no guide. You just have to do what feels right to you at the time. And people will judge you no matter what.
Right.
So, whether it's, family members, even, or the community members, you hear little things. I try not to focus on the negative things, but there's no manual. There's nothing there to help you through things like this. So you just lean on your strongest supports and know that you are making the best decision that you can.
Right. Yeah, I do. I do specifically remember Uncle Bill mentioning to me that that you should take the kids to do that, because that's what Bill would have wanted. I mean,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't let anybody judge anybody that's facing any of these kinds of trials, because they don't know. They don't know what you're going through. They don't know what you have to do. And like you say, there is no man. Just like you're raising children. If you've never raised a child before, there is no manual to teach you how to raise a child. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Life
Yeah,
is life, and you have to roll with the punches and deal with it the best way you can.
there's some bumps along the way.
Absolutely, bumps and obstacles and pitfalls and many things.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, as far as I'm concerned, I think you're doing a fabulous job. You're doing what you have to, you're doing what you can. Um, you know, you're just living your life and just kind of trying to move forward slowly, and you know,
yeah.
you're
Right
still
now, I'm trying to. I know this will be aired afterwards, but right now, trying to navigate the holiday season because Bill would spoil those children rotten and get them things, and I would just shake my head and say, "I don't need that." And now, what would Bill do? That's like I need a bracelet. You remember the WWJD? What would Jesus do? I need like a WWBBD. Like, what would Bill Butler do? That's what I need. Do I spoil them insanely? Or, those are the things is trying to navigate little stuff like that.
right, right. I remember seeing a post on your Facebook about the Halloween costumes. What was it, the Incredibles? You didn't want to do that, but he was so excited about it, you had to do it.
Yeah. Yep. That was not one of my proudest things, but I'm so glad now that we did it. That picture's actually hanging on one of the children's walls. It's, you know, that's a memory that I'll always be thankful for. He always took so many pictures. He was always so proud, and he was always the one to post and not me. So I try to keep things updated because I know there's so many people out there that are still praying for us and think about us every day.
Yeah.
But that's just not what I do. So we're working on it. But yes, I didn't want to do that Incredibles Halloween costume, but I did it. So
I thought
yes.
it was a cute little picture. It was cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a pretty awesome moment for you guys, I imagine, especially
Yeah.
for the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have anything else you'd like to share with us, or anything you'd like to say, Bill's memory, or
No, I just want to thank you for what you're doing to bring recognition to it and to continue to honor him. But I think, I do appreciate it.
yeah, it's definitely much welcome. Uh, from my experience, I never thought. I mean, I never really listened to podcasts at all. Driving truck, I always listen to music, and Brienne, she's the one that actually told me, "Why don't you just start listening to podcasts? There's things out there you might like." So I did, and I started listening to podcasts and listening to political stuff, and there were some things that I liked, and I never thought about doing anything like this. And this was kind of her idea because I wanted to do something meaningful and honor Billy, um, and also we're kind of hoping that if this does get grow, we want to be able to help out first responders and give them scholarships as well. If we can grow and build enough capital, we can offer them money for scholarships to help them get through that process, whether you're want to get into dispatch or EMS or firefighting or law enforcement or whatever like that. That's our main goal. It's about not just honoring Billy's memory, but this is a way that we honor him by giving back to the community. Um,
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
and
awesome.
I'm hoping that this, you know, continues on, and we're gonna keep doing it. We're gonna keep fighting. We're gonna keep getting people, and I have to. It was a strong desire. I thought about it every day when we talked about it, and it just like it was something in my gut, and it ate away at me. And I said, "You need to do it. You need to do it. You need to step out of your comfort zone. You have to. You have to do it." I was like, "Okay, I will do it."
I like it. I will, I'll check out the website and share that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and if you have any referrals of people that you know of, you can just give them our email, and we'll get back to them and send them an official invite or whatever.
Cool.
All the fancy stuff that we do.
Sounds good.
It's nice to see you again. Great to see that wonderful smile. Wish
Yeah.
it was under better circumstances. Too bad we weren't having shots.
I know. Yeah, for real.
Yeah, but because Bill and I, Uncle Bill, we went and visited him Thanksgiving, and I brought Billy a shot.
Did you? Yeah, we went and did shots with him too, and I think we poured. He liked the Johnny Walker Blue.
Yeah,
I think
Johnny
it's the
Walker.
blue. So he got some of that. So yeah,
That's awesome. But anyhow, it's great to see you. I'm glad you come to the show. It really means a lot to me, and we still love you. You're still family to me, as far as I'm concerned.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Next time you come up, we'll have to get you up to the house.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Okay, I will. That's all we have for today. So I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a good evening.
You too.
All right. See ya.
Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode has impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and Truth Social at 8158 Podcast for updates. Remember to visit our website, www.8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor their legacies and remember their sacrifices that protect us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.